Hello and welcome to From the Roots Up, where we're building our homestead little by little from the roots up. I'm Kristy, and today we're going to be pressure canning sweet corn. It's day 23 in our Every Bit Counts challenge, where we have been preserving a little bit every day in the month of August, and we have quite the stockpile. If you saw a couple videos back where we showed you all of our progress for the 3 weeks, and we have a little more than a week left to continue to make progress. I can't wait to see what our stockpile looks like at the end of it. Today we are canning sweet corn, and as far as pressure canning goes, it does not get much easier than pressure canning sweet corn. This is definitely a great pressure canning recipe for even the very most beginner canner. So the first thing you need to do is pull the husks and the silk off of your sweet corn. We have our corn shucked. Now we are going to take a serrated knife and we are going to cut the kernels off of the cob. And I'm going to put them in this bowl. Then we can give our cobs to the chickens. They love to pick off the leftover kernels. And when I said this was like the easiest pressure canning recipe ever, I was not exaggerating. That was the hardest part. Now we're gonna take our jars and we're gonna fill them. We want 1 inch of headspace, which is the space between the top of the jar and the contents of the jar. And we're just going to put our corn into these jars. You don't wanna pack it down tight, and you just wanna fill it within 1 inch of the top. We don't have quite enough to fill up another quart, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill a pint. Now I wanna put a teaspoon of salt in my quart jar and half a teaspoon of salt into my pint jar. And the only other thing I put into the jars is water. Now, since I'm raw packing these jars and I'm going to put them in a canner that's not heated up, I'm gonna go ahead and pour regular room temperature water on them. And remember, we wanna leave that inch of headspace, which is from the top of the jar to the top of the liquid. The only thing left is to take a knife or any kind of object like a chopstick and just kind of poke around and make sure there's no bubbles. And you may have to put a little bit more water once you do that. And that is all there is to it. Before we put the lids on, we just want to wipe the rims and make sure there's nothing that's going to prevent sealing. And then we're going to put the lid on and then the ring. Tighten it finger tight, and then just a little bit more. You don't want to tighten these too tight, because if you do that, sometimes they won't seal. All right, then we have these jars ready to go in our pressure canner. So let's talk a little bit about this pressure canner. It's not as intimidating as it looks. I already have put some water in here. I'm gonna add a dash of vinegar, because we have really hard water around here, and adding a little bit of vinegar helps the calcification, so when you pull the jars out, they're not just covered in this white dust. There are about 2 to 4 inches of water in here. We don't want to cover the lids like you do in a water bath can. You want to make sure you have water in there, but not enough to cover the lids. And always put the canning rack beneath the jars in here, because you don't want the jars sitting right on that burner, that hot burner, because they can crack. So we've set the jars in here, and now we're gonna lubricate the lid with a little bit of olive oil, always just around the rim where the lid connects to the bottom of the pot. And then before we put the lid on, always in these All-American pressure canners, right here is where the weight goes, and you wanna make sure before you put the lid on that you can see all the way through that hole to the light. If the hole is clogged, you need to stick something through it and unclog it. That's part of the pressure release. Here, we have a little divot and there's an arrow on the top of the lid, and you want to line those up and then just twist so that the hooks go up under these little latches. Now we're going to close the pressure canner by taking these latches across from each other and tightening them down. Not too tight. We want to do it evenly across and then do across again and tighten those down just like you would lug nuts on a car tire, because we want it even all the way across. So let's talk a little bit about the process. First, we're going to take the pressure canner to the stove. We're going to turn it on high and let it start boiling. When that happens, after a few minutes, steam will start to come out of this little nozzle. Once steam starts to shoot from the nozzle, then we're going to set the timer for 10 minutes. We want steam to come out of the nozzle for 10 minutes. That helps the pressure in here regulate. And then we're going to take our canning weight. Now for our altitude here, our preferred canning pressure for this project is 10 pounds. That could change depending on where you live, so be sure to check the Ball website for information on your canning altitude and pressure. Once this has spewed for 10 minutes, I'm then going to put the 10-pound weight right on it. Then I'm going to wait for the weight to start jiggling, and once the weight jiggles, at that point, I can set my timer, and that's when the processing time that you see in recipes begins. And I always want to go with the longer processing time. Since I have two different size jars in here, I want to go with the processing time for the quart, which is going to be 85 minutes. Once the canner is processed for 85 minutes, I'm going to then turn the stove off and let it sit, and this pressure on this dial should come all the way down to 0 before I bring it and open it. All right, let's go can some corn. All right, if you can see, we are spewing steam right now. So we're gonna set the timer to 10 minutes. And once 10 minutes is passed, we'll put on our weight. All right, the timer went off. We've been going for 10 minutes. Now I'm going to put the weight on this 10 side down for us. Okay, as you can see, the weight is rattling and shaking, and we're up to 10 pounds of pressure right here. We are back, and our pressure canner is down to 0. So let's go ahead and open it and get our corn out. We always want to open the pressure canner away from us, just in case there's steam. And now we're going to take the corn out. And it really is that easy. Now we have corn that's ready to go on our shelf. We've been preserving things every day in August, and if you missed any of these projects, you can find the playlist right over here. If you got some value out of this, be sure to give it a like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time we have a new video. Have a wonderful day.